what is one piece of advice of wisdom that you would give to either younger couples, or it could be for couples in any age or stage of life? What's one thing that you would say, I think this is really important for you to keep in mind?
I think to never stop pursuing each other, to never stop chasing after that feeling from the very beginning, to never stop being really intentional, to choose each other day after day after day, and to make the effort to make that special for each other. And it's kind of like the being on the same team thing, but more on a more romantic level, just choosing to love each other. And some days it's not as easy as other days. And you know, the fun part about living a life together is you see each other at your absolute worst and at your best, and literally sickness, you know, and we've had some very anyways, but I just think choosing each other, choosing to love each other every day through all of that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think like dating and courtship is for the purpose of getting married, and then you've done that part and now you're together.
Right.
It's like, but you just now get to keep doing that living under the same roof. So it's like, you don't have to have a special like time where you arrange a reservation and you go do something. It's like, no, we walk by each other in the kitchen, and that can be a moment where it's like, hey, happy to see you, or you get whatever. Like you're literally under the same house, so you can still pursue each other, and then arguably it's easier because you're in such close proximity all the time.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, you asked about the best advice we've ever been given. That reminded me, one of the best advice I ever heard was, if you're each focused on taking complete care of each other instead of yourself, you're both being cared for in the way that you need to, but you're providing that for each other.
Yeah.
Which is just going to build that connection and that love and that trust, just to not think about yourself and to care for them and let them do the same for you.
Well, first of all, good morning. Happy Father's Day to all of you dads who are here. I thank the Lord for you. I wish my dad was still here. How many of you still have a dad that's living? Just hold your hand up. Okay, great. Well, be blessed and don't take it for granted, because those days don't last forever. And I like to say, my dad was my best man at my wedding, and miss my dad to this day. But I do wish all of you a happy Father's Day. I want to thank the Offers. They're one of the best couples we have in our church. Just wonderful, wonderful folks. And I was watching that. I think we would all agree, particularly in the day and age in which we live, that it's really refreshing when you come across someone that's been married a long time. I think we'd all agree. It's just kind of just a cool thing. And, even at my age and stage of life, I'm still wanting to know, so how did you do it? How did you make it work all these years? And I was reading this the other day about an elderly couple. They were celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. And at their anniversary party, there was this young man. He wasn't married, but he was about to get married. He was really curious about, how they stayed together. So he goes up to this elderly man, and he said, "Sir," he says, "I'm not married yet, but I want to be, and I'm about to get married, as a matter of fact, and I'd just like to know, what's the secret to your long and happy marriage?" Well, he pulled him over to the corner of the room, and he looked around to make sure nobody was listening, and he said, "Well, it all started on our honeymoon." He said, we went to the Grand Canyon, and we got on a mule to ride down the canyon, and my wife's mule stumbled a little bit and almost threw her off. Well, she got up, and she said very calmly, "That's once." I didn't think that much about it. A few minutes later, it stumbled again, and she looked at the mule. She said, "That's twice." She said when it stumbled a third time, she got off the mule, pulled a gun out of her purse, and shot it right between the eyes. The young man gasped, and he said, well, what happened then? He said, "Well, I looked at her, and I said, 'Now, honey, why in the world did you do that?' She looked me right in the eyes and said, 'That's once.' And we've never had a disagreement ever since." So I don't know what the secret is to your long marriage, or what, but we're in this series that we're calling Marriage Made in Heaven. And we've been reading this manual on marriage by the one who invented marriage. I mean, this is the best book on marriage I've ever read. And the God that I know is a God that desires for everyone who gets married to live happily ever after. God never brings two people together so they'll one day get divorced or they'll one day get separated. What God brings together, He wants to stick together. He wants to glue together. And when two people get married, it really is God's will that they be a happy union, not a civil war. God wants every marriage to end in celebration, not separation. And he wants us to enjoy marriage, not endure marriage. As a matter of fact, the wisest man who ever lived didn't have a really good, by the way, he's not really a paragon of virtue when it comes to marriage, but he said in Ecclesiastes 9:9, he said this. He said, enjoy life with your wife. Don't endure it, enjoy it. Whom you love all the days of this life that God has given you under the sun. And you know, as I was reading about that verse the other day, have you ever thought about how many romantic songs have been written in our nation? You can't hardly turn on any radio station of any kind that eventually you don't hear about a romantic song. And you've had romantic songs that have been written, they will be written till the end of time. I believe the greatest love song, the greatest romantic song ever written in history is actually a book in the Bible. And I want you to take God's word and I want you to turn to a book that you may not have read in a long time or maybe never read it at all. But it's a book called The Song of Solomon. If you'll just go to Genesis, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, The Song of Solomon. I want you to turn to The Song of Solomon. Now, in his lifetime, as great a man as he was, I don't know if you know this or not, Solomon wrote over 1,000 songs. It's amazing. With all that he had to do as king of the greatest nation in the world, he wrote 1,000 songs. But of all the songs that he ever wrote, Solomon would tell you today, this was my number one hit. This got the most play of any song that I ever wrote. Now, I'm old enough to remember the golden age of music, which for me was the 70s. And back in the 70s, one of the most prolific songwriters in America, some of you may know him, his name was Paul Williams. He wrote hit after hit after hit. And one of the most famous hits Paul Williams wrote, you've probably heard this sometime or another, it was called An Old-Fashioned Love Song. As a matter of fact, it soared to number 1 on the U.S. Adult Contemporary Chart, number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. But this old-fashioned song, this old-fashioned love song was written thousands of years before Paul Williams ever came up with this idea. And to Solomon, it was so sweet, it was so precious, it was so wonderful. Solomon was so proud of this song that he wrote, he actually called it Solomon's Song of Songs. That was Solomon's way of saying, of all the thousands of songs I've ever written, this is my favorite song. This is the best one I've ever written. And it really was an old-fashioned love song. All the Song of Solomon is about, it's about a husband and a wife who love each other, who have learned how to love each other, they've learned how to love each other with a love that will last the test of time. And if you could summarize, I could summarize the whole book in one single sentence. This is what we're going to learn today. The marriage that loves the best lasts the longest. That's the bottom line. The marriage that loves the best lasts the longest. So what I thought I would do, I just went through the Song of Solomon, went through some of the passages in the Song of Solomon, and I found 4 different things that if you will do as a couple, whether you've been married a year, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, doesn't matter. There are 4 things if you will do as a couple, you will have a love that will last to the end of your life. So we're going to dive right in, all right? Number 1, we should communicate love through what I call treasured talk. We communicate love through treasured talk. Let me just tell you something I've learned in my own marriage. Happily married couples talk to each other. Now that may sound simple. Here's the problem. Too many times we talk at each other, but we don't talk to each other. But happily married couples, they talk to each other. And they follow God's plan for talking in the right way. They use the right words at the right time. And Solomon knew the way to a woman's heart is through her ears. As a matter of fact, he says this in chapter 1, verse 15. He says, how beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes are doves. He's just taking the time to tell his wife, you are beautiful. Just looking into your eyes, it's just mesmerizing to me. I could just drink in your beauty. Then he goes on to say in chapter 4, verse 7, you are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. He's telling his wife, you're not just beautiful. You are perfectly beautiful. You are beautifully perfect. What's he doing to her? He's affirming her. He's building her up. He's letting her know, I only have eyes for you. Well, guess what she does? She reciprocates. chapter 1, verse 16. How handsome you are, my beloved. How charming. And our bed is verdant. Now, I just want to say it's important to be honest and for husbands to be affirmed physically for the way that they look. I mean, I'm just telling you right now, guys, ladies, listen, I don't care how long you've been married, how old your husband may be. He still wants to know that to you, he is the most handsome guy in the world. And he wants you to believe that. No matter how old he may be, how wrinkled or whatever it may be, he still wants to know that you have eyes only for him. I read the other day about this elderly couple. They were sitting close together on the couch, and they were both reading their favorite magazines. And so the husband looked at his wife, and he didn't notice it for a while, but she was wearing brand new glasses. And so he snuggled up next to her, and he kind of took them off, and he said, you know, without your glasses, you look just like the woman that I married. She looked at him and said, without my glasses, you don't look too bad either. Now, it's important for both the husband and the wife to talk to each other, to be uplifting, to be encouraging. Let me tell you this. This may be the most important thing I'm going to say in this whole message today. There's nothing that's more damaging to a marriage, nothing that will love in a marriage more than constant criticism, constant negativism, always finding the things that are wrong, never finding the things that are right, always pointing out things that you don't do, or she doesn't do, or she can't do, or she won't do, or he won't do, or she can't do, rather than something positive. This blew my mind. There's a man named John Gottman. He's a world-renowned therapist. He's a relationship expert. He devised what he called the 5-to-1 ratio. After years of research, he said this is a key to healthy relationships. I want you to listen to what he said. This is so important. He said, for every one negative interaction in a relationship, you need to engage in 5 positive interactions. For every one thing negative you say to your spouse, you need to say something positive 5 times. So he went on to say, if you're in a 2-to-3 ratio, so you say 2 positive things but 3 negative things, your relationship is in trouble. He said, if it's 1-to-1, you say something negative and then only something positive, it won't be looking great. So he says, always be looking for the good, always be looking for the positive. Let me give you an example. Solomon says this to his wife in chapter 1, verse 9. He said, I liken you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariot horses. Compares his wife to a mare. Now, let me be careful. I was reading in my study, and one man said evidently his wife must have had large hips and was real fast. I don't think that's what he meant at all. I don't. Really, what he was saying was this. The most beautiful horse in a king's retinue was a mare. There was nothing more beautiful than a mare. It was the most sleek. It was the most graceful. It was the fastest. It was the most valuable. And the point that I'm making simply is this. When you're trying to communicate something romantic and something sweet and something encouraging, not only should you do it positively, but always respond in a reciprocal way. She compliments you, you compliment her. He compliments you, you compliment her. Because it's so important in a marriage to say the right thing at the right time in the right way. It is amazing how just the wrong thing at the wrong time can just set off, World War III. And what is even more important is that you keep talking. When I talk about communication, I don't mean there aren't going to be times in a marriage when you're silent and when you're not talking. There are times we all go through those times, and you don't have to always talk to each other. And sometimes there can be sweetness in a silence. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I really mean this. Teresa and I one of the reasons we get along so well is because I don't talk all the time. She doesn't talk all the time. And I don't mean this to be ugly or kind. I don't think I could be married to somebody who just talks all the time. I just couldn't do it. I don't think anybody could be married to me if I talked all the time. That's not the problem. The problem is what I call the sour silence. You know what I mean by that. It's the silence that's motivated by anger, bitterness, unforgiveness. We clam up. And it's where this couple builds a dam that stops the river of communication from flowing. You build a wall so high and so thick that either the couple cannot or they will not ever get back together. When I do what little marital counseling I don't do a lot. But one of the first things I bore in on is tell me how you communicate. And so many times they'll say, well, we don't. And I'll say, well, that's a fundamental problem. You've got to communicate. It's one thing to fail to communicate the right things. It's the worst thing to fail to communicate at all. Because no marriage, I don't care how long you've been together, No marriage will be happy. No marriage can survive without the oxygen of communication. And tender talk is so powerful. It is the right kind that can give oxygen to the fire in a marriage that will make it burn hotter and brighter. But the wrong kind of communication or no kind of communication can suck the air out of the room. So the first thing we're going to learn today from Solomon is you communicate love through treasured talk. You talk not at each other, you talk to each other. And make sure you remember that ratio. Hey, look, nobody's above criticism. I get that, all right? I'm not above criticism, you're not. But for every one criticism that you give 5 positive thoughts. That's lesson 1. Here's lesson 2. You rejuvenate love through together time. You communicate love through treasured talk, but you rejuvenate love through together time. See, marriage is kind of like a plant. A plant needs water in order to stay alive. Well, what is the water that keeps the plant of a marriage alive? It's time. Matter of fact, I'm going to say in just a moment, there's nothing better you can give to a marriage that will keep it healthy and keep it trying. Now, this couple understood this. They got it, because here's what they said in chapter 2. My beloved spoke and said to me, arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. See, the winter is past, the rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth, the season of singing is come. The cooing of doves is heard in our land. The fig tree forms its early fruit. The blossoming vines spread their fragrance. Arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one. I want you to come with me. Now, what's going on? They've been stuck inside. It's been wintertime. It's been hard. Not able to get out. But now spring has come, and the leaves are blooming, and the birds are singing. And she says, hey, why don't we just go somewhere? Why don't we just go spend some time together? And she's not talking about just doing some bird watching or flower gazing. She says, you know what we need? We need some together time. I often have to tell couples this, and I have to remind myself of this. One of the greatest ways, men, you spell love to your wife. And wives, one of the greatest ways you spell love to your husband is spelled T-I-M-E. There's nothing that will communicate with your spouse that they're number one priority over every other relationship than when you give them the most valuable thing you could possibly give them, and that's time. I cannot even tell you how many times, this happened just the other day. I'll have lunch with someone. I was having lunch with a young man the other day. In fact, full disclosure, I got to lead him to the Lord about 2 weeks ago, but we were having lunch. And it was a great thing, great conversation and all that. But in the middle of the conversation, he said, oh, I just want to tell you something, Dr. Merritt. I just can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're having lunch with me. Man, I just want to thank you that you're giving me your time. And I said, stop. I said, we're giving each other time. You're giving me the most valuable thing you can give me. You didn't have to be here. You didn't have to have lunch with me. You didn't have to listen to me share the gospel. You could have stood me up. You could have said, no, thanks, not interested. I said, everybody's time is equally valuable. And there's nothing that you communicate more to someone that they are important to you, that they are a priority to you, than when you just give them time. I mean, think about this. Go back to when you used to date. If you were like me, I tell you what, Teresa and I didn't give to each other a lot when we were dating: money. Because we didn't have any. I mean, I was a student pastor making, barely making ends meet, and she was still in college. We didn't have any money. But what we gave to each other was time. T-I-M-E, time. And there's one thing that single women and married women both have in common. They like to be courted. They like for you to give them their time. They like to be dated. That desire never ends. Now, let me just say this. I want to be super careful. Because when I was working on this, I thought, gosh, I got to be sensitive here to younger couples and younger families. Maybe you've got young children at home. Maybe you're just getting started. And I know it's tough. I know it's hard, particularly. I went through those times. And I know it's hard. You say, well, see, if you say spend time with your wife, you're an empty nester and all of that. And I get that. But let me just say this. Even if it's only for a couple of hours, just here and there are people that will watch your kids. There are. Or maybe somebody will call out the National Guard. I don't know. But anyway, there are people that will watch your kids. They will take care of your kids. They'll look over after your kids long enough for you at least to go and just take a couple of hours, to take some breathing room, to give yourself some time with each other. So when this bride says this to this man, she says, "Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages." What is she saying? She's not saying, let's just go shopping. She said, look, I just want us to get away. Let's get away from the hustle. Let's get away from the bustle. Let's get away from the rat race. Let's let time slow down. And let's just spend time with each other, enjoying each other. One of the things that Teresa and I have done for probably now, good gosh, it's been over 40 years. Started a long, long time ago. We take there's a week in October we take every year. And we go to the mountains every year. We've done it for 40 years. And it's just the two of us. Even when our boys were small, of course, my mom and dad were still living, so we'd leave. They'd come stay with the boys or whatever. But we would let them take care of the boys, and we would go up to the mountains. And one of the best things I've ever done in my marriage is I let her know, now this is your week. We'll do whatever you want to do. You want to go shopping, we'll go shopping. You want to go horseback riding, go horseback riding. You want to do, you want to go play golf, we'll go play golf. No, I didn't say that. Whatever you want to do. You want to go have a picnic by the creek, by the river, whatever. Whatever you want to do, we'll do it. It was her time. And if you just want to take in the sights and the sounds, whatever, if you just want to sit down and talk, it's one of the greatest things we've ever done in our marriage. It's something we look forward to every single year. I understand some of you say, well, Pastor, I don't have that kind of luxury. I've got limited financial resources. I'm not at that place in my life where I can do that. Well, I understand that, but let me just say this. Where there's a will, there's a way. If you want to find time to spend with each other, you can find time to spend with each other. It may be a couple of hours. It may be just a single day. It may be a time where you just leave early in the morning and you come back at night. But you can spend a day together, or even just during the week. Go to the grocery store together. Go run errands together. The point I'm simply making is you communicate to each other that the most important thing to you is when you take time and you make time to spend it with each other. That's lesson 2. Here's lesson 3. You demonstrate love through tender touch. All you men in here, I want you to pay attention to that word. I'll come back to it in a minute. But I want you to demonstrate love through tender touch. Now, twice in this song, in chapter 2, verse 6, and chapter 8, verse 3, we read these lyrics. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. Now, you wouldn't know this because you don't know Hebrew idioms, but that was used in other poetry in that day. It had sexual connotations. And what he's talking about there, honestly, is just loving sexual affection. Now, I want to get very clear about this, so just kind of hang with me just a moment. If you haven't learned this already, men, you better learn it. Men and women are different. I know that may come as a revelation to some of you, but men and women are different. So generally speaking, I'm being general, the number one need that men have is sexual fulfillment. That's his touch. But generally speaking, for most women, the number one need they have is affection and attention. That's her touch. So I want to get just a little personal for just a moment. And I don't know who I'm talking to, but you need to listen. If the only time you ever touch your wife is when you want sex, that's not touching, that's taking. One way you can really show your wife that you love her is just occasional, serendipitous, extemporaneous, unplanned touches. Pat on the back, kiss on the cheek, holding hands when you're walking down the mall, sitting beside her when putting your arm around her when she's watching TV or reading a book, walking up to her just in the middle of the day, giving her a hug and a warm embrace. Now, I know what some of you men are saying right now. I've heard it ad infinitum. Well, I'm just not affectionate. Well, learn to be. Learn to be. You can be affectionate if you want to be. As a matter of fact, make sure your focus is where it needs to be. I was read the other day about a wife. She's lying in bed one night, and all of a sudden she felt her husband's hand caressing her neck. And then his hand slid down her side, stopping at her knee, which was about as far as he could reach. He moved closer. He did the same thing on the other side, and then he just stopped and just moved away. His wife said, She was so delighted by the attention, the affection. She said, that was wonderful. Why did you stop? He said, I found the remote. Now, you see, women crave affection. They crave conversation. They crave attention the same way men crave sex and recreational companionship. In fact, I learned something working on this message. The majority of a woman's needs, dads, husbands, the majority of a woman's needs are non-sexual. Let me tell you 3 things a woman wants. She wants to be hugged. She wants to be held. She wants to be heard. Now, I would be unfair if I didn't flip it and say, ladies, on the other hand, your husband does need sexual fulfillment. We just wired that way. We're made that way. I don't remember where I read this, but somewhere someone said husbands want sex on all days that start with a T. Thursday, today, tomorrow, Tatterday, and Tunday. They want all, whatever day that starts with T. And let me just say this, ladies, I understand sometimes you're not in the mood. I get it, you're just not up for it. But, and husbands, we need to be sensitive to those times. I want to make that plain. But can I be honest, ladies, don't have a headache every night. If you do, go see a neurologist. You got a problem. I love the story about a man who came to bed one night and he brought his wife a glass of water and 2 aspirin. She looked up at him and she said, I don't have a headache. He said, gotcha. The point is, you demonstrate love through tender touch. And here's the last thing. You illustrate love through timely thoughtfulness. Now, I want you to watch this. This is really pretty cool. When I read the Song of Solomon, in fact, I was saying about this 2 weeks ago. Boy, I wish this couple was here. I wish this couple could sit up on this stage and we could just interview this couple and say, man, tell us how you do. Tell us how you've made such a beautiful, beautiful romantic relationship. I wish they could lead a marriage retreat for every married couple because they don't leave any stone unturned. Because I want you to listen to what happens in chapter 7. We're going to move to chapter 7. Look what happens in chapter 7. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, if the pomegranate tree blooms. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes send out their fragrance, and at our doors every delicacy, both new and old, that I've stored up for you, my beloved. You remember that little trip I told you that she wanted to take with her husband? Well, now she says, look, let's go out together. Let's pick some flowers. Let's gather some fruit. And I want to give the fruit to you. And so I just want to express to you how much I love you. She's being so thoughtful. And one of the things I've learned in my own marriage, guys, is just how important little things are. Listen, men, you don't have to spend a lot of money to be romantic with your wife. It doesn't take a lot of financial resources. You don't even have to do a lot of big things to demonstrate your love. I'll give you a personal example. I am not a handyman. Anybody that knows me, I've said this all the time. If I were Noah, everybody would have drowned, okay? I am not a handyman. I'm not a fix-it guy. I'm allergic to tools. I've learned that. I'm just not a fix-it. But nobody can make better coffee than I can. There's this magic machine called a Keurig. And all you got to do is take a pod. It's so easy. You take a pod, you fill up the thing with water, you stick the pod in, you close it up, you hit a button, coffee comes out. It's the most amazing thing in the world. And every morning, my first thing, when I get up, first thing I do every morning, I take my vitamins, and before I even go have my quiet time, I make Teresa coffee. She likes coffee, get up, she's a coffee person. And so I go and make her coffee. In fact, I bought her some of you may know, there's a little cup called Ember. If you don't know, it's the coolest thing in the world. Ember keeps your coffee hot. So I always make the coffee and I pour it into Ember. And then, a lot of times if we have like something like banana nut bread or an energy bar or something like that, I'll heat something up, right, and I'll warm it up and I'll take it to her so it's there when she wakes up. And then I always keep my phone on when I go to my room because it's about 20 minutes, she's gonna say, more coffee, please. It's just kind of a ritual. And I go get her a second cup of coffee. Now, it's amazing to me. To me, it's not a big deal. It's just not a big, I don't get it. But it's just small, intentional acts like that. It's like throwing a bucket of kerosene on a fire. Little things like send a text. Just before I walked out here, I'm not trying to brag. Just before I walked out here, I'd send her a text. I love you and you only. I just sent her a text, just to let her know that I love her. An occasional love note left on the bed, a card given for no reason, flowers brought home when there's no special occasion. Matter of fact, you know, I was asking Teresa this has been months ago, because I was thinking about this series, and I said, what's the most romantic thing you find that I do for you? I'm not making this up. She said, can I tell you? And I said, yeah. She said, when you take out the trash. I said, you got to be kidding me. That's all you got? I take out the trash? She said, well, and when you clean your study. I said, really? You're kidding me. She said, yeah, when you get me coffee. Let me get this straight. If I take out the trash and I clean my study and I get you coffee, we're good to go. She said, yeah. I was like, I got off cheap. I got off easy. I mean, I'm just telling you. Now, she did say this. She said, well, there's one other thing. She said, it's winter. When it's winter and you let me put my cold feet up against your legs. She said, that's the sweetest thing in the world. I did not tell her that's the only time divorce has ever entered into my mind. I didn't tell her that. But here's my point. We're going to wrap this up. I don't know who I'm talking to, but I know I'm talking to somebody in this room. I know I'm talking to somebody that's listening right now. I wish you could see. Callie Overcash is my assistant. She could tell you. I wish you could see the emails I have gotten since we started this series on marriage from people that live in other states who watch us online or watch us on TV. I wish you could see the emails. I just read one yesterday. Just read another one yesterday. And they'll never know who it is. But it's about a young man that I knew over in Snellville, and they're having marital difficulties. And she doesn't even know why. She's at the end of her rope. It's amazing, the emails. It's amazing, the text. It's amazing, the people have found out, man, can you help us? Can you please? Or I had a lady walk out the other day. This happened last week. A lady walked out after the 9:15 service. Her husband was in front of her. You'll never know who it was, and they won't know who it is either. But I noticed as they walked by where my table is out there, as they walked by, she let him go first. They had 2 kids, and then he walked, and she was behind them. And it was obvious to me she was kind of let them go ahead. As they got far enough out of earshot, she turned to me. Tears were coming down her cheeks, and here's what she said to me. You saved my marriage today. You saved my marriage today. I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know who in this room, and you're thinking about throwing in the towel. You're thinking about waving the white flag. I don't know. But nothing is dynamic unless it's specific. So I'm going to ask you this coming week, I don't care how hard it is for you to do it, I'm going to ask you to do 4 things. Just for this week. I'm not going to ask you for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Just this week. I'm going to ask you if you're married or if you're dating. I'm going to ask you if you're married especially, 4 things that I want you to do. Just give it a shot. See what happens, all right? Number 1, every day, spend time talking to each other without interruption. No TV, put the phone up, put everything else aside. You just talk to each other. If it's nothing but how's your day going? How can I pray for you? Is there anything that I can do for you today? Just talk without interruption. Number 2, do something together every day. Take a walk, run an errand, cook together, clean up, whatever. Do something together every day. Number 3, show each other some type of physical affection at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and hopefully during the day. Just some physical affection, some attention. Number 4, occasionally at least do some thoughtful thing that's totally unexpected. A love note, foot massage, flowers, surprise dinner date, a text, whatever it may be. That's not hard. Guys, listen to me. Look up here, guys. That's not hard. Ladies, that's not hard. Well, I don't want to do it. I didn't ask you if you wanted to do it. I didn't ask you if you felt like doing it. Just do those 4 things. I'm going to close with this. The strongest fires are not the ones that roar, because they eventually burn out. The strongest fires are the small fires that crackle and they pop, but they never give out. I'm living proof that by the grace of God, with the love of God, in the power of God, your marriage can really be an old-fashioned love song that never ends. And I want to close with this. We've got one more sermon in this series, but I'm going to close with this. I was talking to a couple 3 weeks ago, and they may not make it. Both engines are flaming out, and they're getting ready to hit the parachute. And here's what I said to them. You're going to write a story. In fact, you're writing a story right now. And you're going to choose how that story ends. It can end in divorce. It can end in dissolution. It can end in division. Or, in the sovereignty and the grace and the power of God, you can write a different story. You can write at the end of the story, and they lived happily ever after. That is the power of the gospel. That is the power of Jesus, who died on a cross, who came back from the grave. And I'll close with this thought. If you're one of those folks right now and you're still just as cynical as you can be, and you can say, nice try, Pastor, no cigar, I'm not buying it, we're done, this is impossible, it cannot work out, I'll ask you to think about one thing, and we're going to pray. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If God can raise his son from the dead, he can raise your marriage from the dead. Let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, I preached this message today. I tried to mix in some humor, but Lord, the burden that I have, I hope they saw. I don't always do the things I talked about today. I have to work on them just like we have to work on, all of us in this room. But Lord, I pray right now that you do a mighty work in marriages. I pray for single people who are dating. Lord, I pray that they would keep their relationship pure until the time for their marriage. And I pray, Father, in the meantime, that even in their dating, they would learn how to relate to each other in a way that will just carry over in a marriage. If you're here today, or you're listening right now, and you do not know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, let me just tell you this right up front. Yes, a marriage can fail with Jesus, but I don't know how a marriage can succeed without Jesus. Not a true marriage, not a godly marriage, not the marriage that God wants for you. So whether you're a dad or a mom or a husband or a wife or a son or a daughter or a brother or sister, Jesus Christ died on a cross and came back from the grave, not just so you could be saved, not just so you could be forgiven, not just so you'd go to heaven when you die, but so that you could be the husband and the wife that God called you to be. And if you don't know Jesus today, it would be my prayer right now that you would just simply call on him. That you just simply do what that 28-year-old young man did a couple of weeks ago, sitting in that restaurant in Alpharetta. That you just pray and say, Lord Jesus, I'm a sinner and I'm lost. I need to be saved. I can't save myself. But I believe you died for my sins. I believe God raised you from the dead. And I believe you're alive right now. I ask you to come into my heart, save me, forgive me. And if you're one of those people that your marriage is in trouble, Lord, I know the pastor's right. If you can raise your son from the dead, you can raise my marriage from the dead. And Lord, let it begin with me. Not her, not him. Let it begin with me. And Father, this is my prayer. Don't let your word return void. Let it accomplish what you please. Let it prosper in the thing for which you sent it. I pray right now that there are couples that will walk out of this building and couples that will finish listening to us through TV or online, whatever, with a renewed commitment, a renewed faith, a renewed fervor. We're going to work our marriage out by the grace of God, and I know through God we can, because with God, all things are possible. If you prayed and received Christ today, We want to know about it. If you're watching online, if you'll just go to crosspointchurch.com/next, let us know you prayed to give your life to Jesus. We would love to help you get started on your walk with God. If you're in this room today, husband, wife, mom, dad, you prayed to give your life to Christ and you meant it, there's a table out in the lobby. It's called Next Steps. Go to that table. Tell them that you gave your life to Christ. Maybe you need to be baptized. Maybe you need to join this church. Maybe you need to get involved in a small group. Maybe you just need somebody to pray over your marriage. Whatever that is, you go to that table. We want to help you. We want to pray for you. Now let's stand to our feet. We've got one last song we want to sing, one last announcement we're going to make. And again, as we stand to our feet, all of you dads, happy Father's Day. Thanks for coming. Let's sing together.